Welcome back to the Dragon's Den. I'm Rukari, and today we're venturing into the Minotaur Hotel. If you haven't guessed already, my theme for this month is just furry romance. We're just gonna go and roll with it. This was not my idea. This was my friend Afrodo's idea, linked in the description below. Across the sea you shall find the island of Crete, from which the tyrant Minos demanded tribute in the form of Athens' finest youth. Upon arrival they were sent to a foul location erected by Daedalus, the great architect. 'Twas a labyrinth in which lived the bull of Minos. The hybrid was conceived when the tyrant's wife, a once sacred nymph, was stricken by a lustful curse, making her take the bull's lurch. The result was the monster called Asterion, half bull, half man. Having no place in nature, he took to consuming human flesh. He lived in the labyrinth, feeding off Athenians, but among the sacrifices came a distinguished hero, Theseus, future king. The bright-eyed Athenian captivated the passions of Princess Ariadne, who revealed the secret to defeating the Minotaur. Later, the victorious prince's bronze sword shone splendidly under the sun as he and the princess sailed away from Crete to Naxos. Prologue: The Deed. There's a bit more to the myth of that. The king of Minos kept a beautiful, I believe it was a snow white bull that was supposed to be sacrificed to Poseidon, and then as punishment for his greed, Poseidon cursed his wife, of all things, to lust after the bull, and that's how the Minotaur was conceived, which it's always men screwing things up, isn't it? You don't remember much about that night. Oh. Your travels had taken you far from home to the most possessed subway in the world. You were halfway dead after all the nights tossing and turning under unfamiliar ceilings. It was 3 a.m., and it felt as if you hadn't slept in a proper bed for at least 2 nights. You were pulling all the spirit you had left to keep you going, grinding your mind to dust. But it would soon be over. You were so close to home. Just one more bus ride, one long enough for a good night's sleep. I actually love moving vehicles, long bus rides, train rides, all of it. I will fall right to sleep. That's just like, that's my lullaby, is vehicles. Until then, however, you had to keep yourself awake. You got up and set out to explore the station. The whole place was a sorry sight. It didn't have much, and what little it had was poorly maintained. The bathroom was an atrocious mess, the lobby's floor was stained with age, the asphalt on the terminal ceiling was cracking. Oh, so you're in Grand Central. That's what I'm taking from this. Even so, it had been built to last, decorated with brutal obsidian pillars cut right out of the earth itself, and marble tiles polished into labyrinthian patterns. Obsidian actually would not be a good pillar material. It's very sharp, but very brittle. Get you some granite. The walls were lined with statues in a grotesque style, their exaggerated expressions locked in wild-eyed screams. The ceiling was covered with latticed reproductions of paintings, Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam, and a bit up ahead, Picasso's Guernica. We're going with that. The lobby seemed to extend forever onwards, lined on either side by rows of closed-down stores. The elevator music playing from some unseen speaker was enough of a distraction to keep you going. A sudden crackling of static broke the song. You had found your way into a cafe, populated solely by an old radio and an even older gentleman. His skin was paper-thin. He held a cup of coffee, and every time he sipped from it, his shaking hands would spill half the contents. The old man's glazed gaze passed over you a few dozen times before he realized you were there. I'm digging the art style, though, I'm not gonna lie. As he looked at you, he patted the stool beside him and shook his hand in your direction. He poured a cup for you. You sit, hunched over the counter, and take a sip. A breeze of life pours over your face. You can't even register what it tastes like. You just know right then and there that you are alive and wide awake. You look to your side, to the old man. His face is contorted into some form of distress, lips quivering as his eyes dart to and fro. He puts a hand over each of his pockets, face still locked in fear, until his right hand falls over his breast pocket. He breathes a sigh of relief and looks at you. He starts talking, but not in the language you understand. He's not even looking at you. His gaze wanders around with seemingly no goal, but eventually he finds a thread you can follow. You seem like a traveler type. You remind me of... He hesitates, glances around, mulls over his words. Yes, you remind me of myself in my younger days. He looks ahead and takes a sip of his drink. You catch a glimmer in his eyes, a sudden wakefulness. I was a fool, never settled down and squandered my one chance at a proper life. Felt the road would always take me in. Ended up throwing away the one place I could call a home. It's been rotting for who knows how long, and now I'm old. Always wondered if someone would ever take over and treat it right. Now, you do remind me of myself, but I wasn't a good man. Hopefully you don't have the mean streak I had. Well, I try my best. I'm figuring things out. I try my best. I'm far from perfect, but I do try my best. Is that so? I suppose that's as good as it gets. At least nowadays, you can try. Back in my day, my father treated me like dirt and no one batted an eye. I saw that happen a lot too. I wasn't the only one. At least you're aware of your generational trauma and trying not to perpetuate it. It made beasts out of my siblings and I, having a father like that. But don't you think I'm blaming him? You can only point the finger at your dad for so long, eh? At least, eventually, I found a way to make a living. How about you, young man? Have you found a calling? Oh, okay. I actually have to make decisions about myself. Ooh, that's good. Okay. Realistically, I would probably fall under the arts. I'm an Englishy person. I found my calling in the arts. I can make okay, so this is, am I running the hotel? Oh, goody. So I can either have, if I'm in the humanities, I'm better at crafting contracts and can get additional options from them. I'm good at handling bureaucratic situations. No. You are charismatic and a good mediator in conflicts. You are able to make some choices that are fixed for other backgrounds. Everyone always took me for a leader. No. You have vast knowledge of literature, arts, and architecture. You can make renovations to the hotel that bring in additional guests. Found my calling in the arts. Maybe. Tech. You are knowledgeable about computer systems, programming, and engineering. You can lend additional help in tech R&D projects. I do not have a thing with technology. It hates me. Math. You are analytical and thorough. You have access to additional information that leads to better team management and optimization. I'm very talented with math. No. You get additional loot from exploration, and you may turn a danger event to your advantage. Good for second playthroughs. They speedrun games for a living. I either want to be charismatic or I want to be in the arts. Let's go with having more. Nope. I'm gonna be true to myself. I'm an artist. A man of culture, yes! That's very scarce these days. The old man rambles in the same language from before. Sometimes he'll stop and stare at you as if expecting a response. A nod or a grunt is enough to get him going again. His voice becomes graver and deeper as the night goes on. It is soothing, in a way, even if at times he'll again allude to having a rough, sorrowful past. Eventually he stops, and his gaze seems to shine with lucidity once more. I must say, I am terribly sorry. I'm afraid I never asked for your name. What is your name? Rukari. Always. I'm glad I met you, Rukari. The old man's eyes become glazed again and his hands start shaking. Coffee spills everywhere, but it's gone cold already. You seemed like a well-traveled man. Oh, traveling when I was young was so difficult. Now you can be on the other side of the globe in a day or two. Oh, how the world has changed. There was this one time I talked with my brother just about this topic. Back home, there was this vineyard where we spent so many summers eating and drinking. I remember it so well, it's like a moving picture. And you know what he told me? That when we were young, there was so much wonder and magic around us. It's true, we could walk down the road, a stony little thing from Roman times, and when we were children, once or twice every week, we'd see ghosts rising from cairns and crosses to mingle about. But things have changed so much. I think it's the technology. Spirits and the arcane don't mix well with it. Or maybe it's something in the eyes. This is Theseus, okay? I'm just calling it. This is Theseus. My brother, he used to say it's because mankind lacks piety nowadays. The unknown is not as frightful either. So much mystery has been lost. And so the bridge with the fantastical broke down. We're gonna get flung into the fantastical. That's what's about to happen. The old man freezes for a moment, then looks back to you. Oh, I was rambling again, was I? I'm so sorry. Don't worry about it. That's interesting to hear. You're a little bit crazy. I love to say science explains a lot, but I've had my fair share of weird, spooky experiences when I was a kid, you know? I've seen something supernatural, too. I've seen a thing or two which I can't see science ever explaining. The world is a more mysterious place than we like to think. Perhaps fantastical things aren't as common, but they manage to slip by the cracks every once in a while. Anyone who travels as much as I did will eventually stumble upon something of this sort. Or perhaps the supernatural is still out there, speaking in whispers instead of speaking plainly. Whispers. You are quite a sensitive young man. There's humility in sensing how much there is out there yet to be learned. I'm making this old guy like me, and I'm not sure if I like it. Perhaps, yes, you seem good. Special. Perhaps you will do. Here, I'd like you to have this. I'm sure you'll take better care of it than I did. The old man takes an old piece of paper from his breast pocket and extends it to you. The deed for the place I told you about, the one I squandered. I'm old, tired. I would like someone to have it. I've been looking for an heir for a while now, and I don't quite feel like I have any more time to waste. Just take it. It's yours. A grandiose place, a hotel. Time's taken a toll, but you will love it. Just please, take care of it. Be good. Give him a purpose. You raise an eyebrow at him. Did this old man try to give you a hotel just like that? Now, who would do that? You don't even know me. We met literally like 10 minutes ago. I mean, I'm a stranger. I could be a serial killer for all you know. His wandering gaze betrays his senility. At times, he seems outright confused, as if he didn't know how he got here in the first place. You can't take it. It wouldn't be right to take advantage of someone like him. And that's assuming that piece of paper is a deed. It might just be a used napkin with a nice seal. The old man's gaze wanders around. With his hand still extended, he squints his eyes at you, then looks down to the paper. He struggles to put his thoughts together, but for a brief moment his expression grows firm and lucid. You must think I'm crazy, but please understand. This is my last chance to do it right. Just take the deed. The old man offers you a deed for a property. Do you accept it? I'm not gonna do what I did in Perfect. We're gonna be good. You give in to the old man's pleas. You're just accepting a piece of paper after all. It's probably nothing. And if it indeed is something important, you can try returning it. You obtained the old deed. To check your items, open the menu and go to the Items subscreen. Menu. Items. Deed. This old piece piece of parchment looks unimaginably ancient, older than you, that's for sure, but the wax on it seems reasonably new, perhaps even fresh. You break open the seal and examine the paper's contents. It's gibberish, written in an alphabet you've never seen before. Well, it would seem like this was all for nothing. You stick the deed in your jacket pocket. You look back up to the old man, the corners of his mouth wrinkle, and he shakes ever so slightly. But his joy is short-lived. His gaze wanders once again. When his focus returns to you, he furrows his brow, taking in each of your features one at a time. The old man mumbles something to himself, takes a sip of his coffee, and smiles. "You are a very kind young man, Rukari." He does remember your name, at least. You check your wristwatch and see the numbers, too, have turned into gibberish. You take it you've spent too long here. You collect your luggage, say your farewells to the old man, and thank him for the wonderful coffee. He subtly bows to you. "No, Rukari, it is I who ought to be grateful. It was a pleasure dealing with you." Dealing with me? That's like what the devil says when he buys your soul for violin playing skills. You leave the cafe and make your way to the bus terminal. The station is deserted, save for a single man smoking a cigarette outside the cafe. You greet him with a nod, and he responds in kind. Aside from the old man, he is the only person you find, but maybe that ought to be expected at this time of night. You make your way through the empty station. There's no one to greet you at the boarding platform. The bus is so dark you can hardly make out the driver's silhouette. As soon as you sit down and recline, you try to process the night's events, but your thoughts skitter away. It's so hard to say for sure exactly how long you've been traveling. All the airports, truck stops, train stations, and ports mixed together. The restlessness of unending travel is the only constant. It doesn't take long for you to give up. A merciful warmth seeps from your chest, and you fall asleep. Chapter 1. The Hotel. The Minotaur Hotel. A few days later. The horizon sprawls across the stained windshield. The radio's tune is disintegrated into static. The AC can't keep up with the sun's heat on the car's roof. Where are we even going? What was our travel plan to begin with? Like, did we just start hopping on random buses and trains and see where the heck we end up? The desert stretches on the entire horizon ahead, a wasteland of flat, yellowed plains. To the right, about 100 meters from the road, the dusty soil gives way to a sharp cliff. A valley peeks out beneath it, stretching to the blue horizon. You check the deed again. You couldn't read it at first, maybe you were too tired, but now the once gibberish characters make some sense to your brain. It's like reading a language that had branched off from your native tongue a few centuries prior. It's just alien enough to be unrecognizable at first. However, when you squint hard enough, you find that the characters remind you of your alphabet, and then the word's meaning pops up in your head. It's unsettling in a way. It feels as if your brain is shifting from inside out the more you look into it. But try as you might, it's hard to even acknowledge this discomfort. It melts away at the blink of an eye. You squint at the deed. Just an hour or so ago, you had checked it and realized how close you were to the address. And so you got into your car and set out with a newfound curiosity and a nagging anxiety fighting it out in your chest. Maybe the old man really had given you something of value after all, not a worthless scrap paper. Could it really be you got a deed for a hotel from a senile old man in a cafe? Sure, not many would complain about getting something for free like that, but at the same time, most would argue it feels wrong. It's a trap! You're gonna get trapped in the labyrinth! The hotel should be just farther ahead. You turn on the engine and set off again. It pops up on the horizon just 5 minutes later. A while later, you pull into its gravel parking lot. Wow, that's a big effing hotel. Because, like, looking back in time, it was what must have been one of the greater hotels of the 30s and 40s. It's built entirely out of marble in an Art Deco style. It's majestic, grandiose even, but utterly ruined by age and made eerie by its surroundings. Who thought building such an incredible place in a desert would be a good idea? You look to the infinite horizon behind you. There is nothing aside from the hotel. No plants of any kind, no cacti brush or even dead trees. Only a hotel in the middle of a desert, built on top of the cliff's wall. No animals either. The sky is blue without a cloud or bird of prey in sight. The ground beneath you has no bugs, not even a scorpion or spider. There were no other cars on the road either. You look back to your car's panel. The odometer indicates you've only driven about 4 miles. Your car's hood is cool to the touch, as if it had been off for hours. You look back to the hotel as you think about all these details. Something catches your eye, however, a porch overlooking the valley beneath the hotel. The valley stretches to the cloudless horizon, framed to the right and left by more cliffs. Looking down to the bottom, you can just make out the outline of a dry riverbed stretching out. You notice there's a cave opening in the cliff wall, right below the hotel. Its exit is lined with statues, the details of which you can't make out at this distance. Right outside, there are rocky tiles spreading out in pathways. You'd wager a guess it made for a labyrinth of sorts when the river still flowed. The labyrinth of the Minotaur! Put 2 and 2 together, my guy. Remember your mythology. We were a literature major. We should know the classics. The maze ends with a single pathway leading to a high mound, which would have easily stood as an island in the middle of the flooded valley. This region's terrain is much like the hotel. It may have been beautiful a long time ago, but now it's eaten away by time. Your reflection is broken as a more pressing matter sneaks up on you. The heat. Regardless of the weirdness around you, there's no escaping the sweltering sun. You walk to the entrance. The doors are unlocked. It's hard to tell for how long this place has been abandoned. The building itself surely is old. The exterior is severely decayed. It wouldn't be surprising if the interior is teeming with wild animals, rotten walls, and fallen pieces of ceiling. But instead it's just dusty. Humid and stagnant too. The walls are water damaged and there's a lot of mold. However, it's not as bad as one would think. You call out in the hope anyone might be there. Maybe some squatters, but just like outside, there's no signs of life at all in the hotel. You walk up to the reception. The counter is as dusty as you'd expect, and there are pens and yellowed pieces of paper strewn about. It seems whoever was here left the place in a hurry with who knows how many years ago. There's a door behind the reception desk which leads you to a small but dignified office that seems to have been left under a similar state of hurry. There are even portraits on the table showing black and white pictures of a smiling family. On the corner of the room, there's a rusted safe. Which one should you investigate? Let's check the desk. I'm not sure if I can get into the safe. On the desk is a ledger. Like everything else in the hotel, its pages are yellowed and wrinkly, but it's still readable. It contains a list of guests, their respective rooms, check-in and check-out dates, signatures, and so on. The last guest arrived back in 1944. To be more precise, someone attempted to check in on that date but was interrupted in the process. All the following pages in the ledger are blank. You find a second leather-bound ledger as well. This one has staff written on it in flaking gold paint. It lists all the employees in the hotel during 1944, their country of origin, role, and a few have a star scribbled beside their name. This place employed quite a number of people. More than 50, in fact. There doesn't seem to be anything else you can deduce from this ledger. Alrighty, let's check the safe. Nothing can go wrong here. It's one of the old-timey safes you'd see in movies from the 90s with the spinning dial and all. You prepare yourself to try and crack the password, except it's already unlocked, albeit rusty. You gotta keep the safe locked! There's only a stash of booklets inside it, 4 passports, all from different countries. Unsurprisingly, they are all expired. There doesn't seem to be anything special about them, but it's strange that someone would keep passports in an office like this. You take a moment to go over the ledgers and passports together. A cursory glance reveals a pattern. The passports are from the floor employees with stars beside their name. You take them with you and leave the ledger on the table. I've got some passports! Great! You return to the reception and continue looking around. Up ahead is a tall spiral staircase going both up and down. There are multiple paths branching out from the lobby. You take one of the hallways leading down to the bedrooms and find all the doors unlocked. None of the games I'm playing for this so far actually are what I thought they would be. Much like the lobby, the bedroom's rotting walls were consumed by time. Walking into them disturbed the fine mist of stagnant spores and dust, which was turned into a curtain of diamonds by the sun shining through the windows. Each bedroom was equipped with at least one king-size bed. The springs were busted more often than not and the fabric yellowed, but not even such desolation could hide the past glory of this place. You returned back to the hallway, which seemed to stretch forever forward. From the outside, the hotel had looked big, but not nearly sprawling enough to have a ground floor with over 100 bedrooms. It's the Infinite Hotel. For every guest that comes in, you move the next guest to their room +1 in an infinite spiral of never-ending room changes. No matter how many twists and turns you took, the hallway never wrapped back into itself. Backtracking all the way back to the lobby was the only option. The spiral staircase seemed much more inviting than wandering the seemingly endless hallways. Or not! Over the staircase, all the way up, there was a skylight draping the sun's warmth over your shoulders. It was a lighthouse guiding travelers to this once majestic hotel. It looks like something MC Escher would have thought of. Jesus. I'm trying to follow the spirals. I should not. The way down was as ominous as the skylight was graceful. The marble handrails were lined with burnt-out lamps. It was impossible to see much in the darkness down below. The second floor was mostly bedrooms again, but here the outer hallways were lined with sprawling windows showing a courtyard behind the hotel, close to the cliff's edge. It was a sight to behold. While the hotel was consumed by time, the garden outside had flourished. It was a field brimming with white flowers swaying in this wretched desert's wind. Are they narcissus? At the center was a statue of a man and a dog. The flowers rose up to the man's knees, and only the top of the dog's head could be seen. The man's hand was outstretched, as if beckoning the flowers to grow taller, for people to approach. The garden seemed a more inviting adventure. You descended back down the marble staircase, brimming with clarity, and it felt like a cloak or a hug was draped over your back. You took the hallway leading further towards the hotel's back, and a single turn to the right brought you to a vast room. Ballroom? Right beside its entrance was a bar, and to the left tables, couches, and reclining chairs. Further left there was a tall window of stained glass like the ones in a cathedral, and through a glass door beside this window was the garden. The wind blowing through the garden sent out a long, continuous whistle. From this low angle, the statue seemed like a king, tall yet humble, beckoning his dear subjects. The flowers swayed back and forth in the singing wind, and the dog's head was barely visible above them. Its ears were perked up, and its tongue lolled out from its grinning mouth. Dang, this is a long intro. Where's my Minotaur boys? Behind the statue, behind the courtyard, was a railing overlooking the drop into the valley below. As you walked around the statue, you noticed out of the corner of your eye that the dog seemed to have turned its head to follow you. You looked back. The dog statue hadn't budged, but indeed it was gazing right at you. You parted the flowers and walked up to it, and that's when you noticed the dog had 3 heads. One staring forward, and one looking off to either side. All 3 of them exuded warmth. You petted one of its heads and noticed how worn the marble was. People have been petting him for a very long time. Then you made your way to the cliff's edge. Once more, you were greeted by the valley. Straight down, far below, you could see the statue-lined cave exit. You could only wonder how vibrant this land must have been years ago when the valley's river still flowed. This all seems like a bad idea, and also like a good way to either get some kind of mold poison. Like, you could get valley fever, you could get typhoid, like, who knows what's in this place. You go back inside, into the vast room. It seems dark but intimate now that your eyesight is used to the exterior's brightness. You can still notice the whistling coming from outside. You take a seat at the bar. This newfound darkness is smooth, soft as velvet. It's like being in a candlelit lounge. Behind the counter, the bottles of fine spirits are still half filled. They glimmer in exquisite browns, reds, and blues. Please don't drink anything. You close your eyes and imagine how this place was decades ago. The whistling shifts again. It turns into the hum of human life, footsteps and breathing, chairs being dragged, cutlery and plates clinking, laughter, whispers, people greeting each other from across different tables. People dressed so nicely. A barman in front of you serving the finest drinks you can imagine. He knows your name and how you like it. Whether you are tired or brimming with life, he lends you an attentive ear. You open your eyes. You are back in the abandoned hotel, majestic and destroyed. One can understand why the old man wished to pass it on to someone who would care for it. You tap your jacket's breast pocket, making sure the crumpled parchment is still there. Even the yellowed, stained paper exudes warmth now. You stand up and walk out. As you do so, you notice a large purple stain on the floor behind the counter. The glass shards of what used to be a wine bottle. You proceed further into the hotel. There's still a lot to see. All the way down the hallway, a set of sliding glass doors beckon you, but from afar, the difference is clear. The wallpaper is ripped, and one of the doors is cracked. You step on something hard. A revolver bullet. You push the door to the side and are greeted by an even more chaotic sight. It's the hotel's restaurant. The tables are overturned, and both chairs and plates lay broken on the floor. There's a darkened stain in the middle of the room, which trails into the kitchen. Great, it's a murder hotel. This is not what you want. You should not start up a business here. This is going to result in you getting either possessed or haunted or both. It leads you past the pantry and to the massive iron door of a cold room, which is locked up from outside and boarded up. All around the kitchen, things are strewn about. There's even a pan on the stove with what must be fossilized food, and the sink is filled with dirty dishes. On a nearby counter is a revolver covered in thick dust. You think back to the bullet in the hallway and the stain on the restaurant floor. The old man wasn't kidding when he said he wasn't a good person. You check your phone. Perhaps you'll need to call the police or morgue, but there's no signal out here. You breathe in, preparing yourself for a terrible sight. The rusted door fights against your will, but stands no chance. Darkness pours out. Turn on your phone flashlight at least. Come on! The stench strikes first. It's the stagnant smell of blood and rot. It clings to your nose and mouth like a bitter oil. Before your eyes can adjust to the darkness, a second wave of stench hits. It's like a farm, too, the scent of dusty fur, maybe even hay, but cooped up in a hot, humid room for decades. You should not be here. Why is this game suddenly so scary? And last but not least, stale shit and piss. This place has it all, the stench of 1,000 different deaths, and you should not be here. You should leave. Do the same thing, my friend. The light pouring into the cold room shines on the floor in front of the doorway. Empty cans of soup and glasses of jam are strewn about over the trail of old blood. Whoever was locked in here didn't die quickly. The cold room extends into absolute darkness, a hallway in and of itself. You proceed, scraping your shoes on the floor so you don't trip over the refuse. Why would you go inside? What is wrong with you? The entire floor is covered with discarded glasses and cans. Whatever scraps were left in them has long rotted, dried, and crumpled into dust. Both your footsteps and breathing echo. The overbearing humidity drapes across your back, and your breathing becomes agitated. The stench is stronger. Your sight finally adapts to the dark. At what must be the cold room's far wall, you notice the faintest glimmer. Whatever it is, it's slouched on the floor motionless, as if it died where it stood after who knows how long locked here. A shy blue glimmer, however, flickers where its left eye ought to be. I'm gonna go call the police. Oh great, I'm not allowed to. You pull out your phone, but there's no signal. Maybe the cold room is causing interference. Before leaving, you take a moment to get a good look at the things. You'll have to describe it to whoever picks up the call. Your eyesight is used to the dark now. The distant pillar of light bleeding from the doorway is enough to avoid tripping on the discarded glass. You crouch in front of the thing. You're going to die. It has a bull's head. You look around its neck, searching for a zipper or the edge of a mask, but there is none. It's covered in fur, aside from the patches of sickly exposed skin. It has hooves instead of feet. Its horns could easily gore a person. Half of its skull is exposed. The bone still has a smattering of blood dust near the remaining flesh. Its left eye socket is empty, but something shines inside it, a blue ember. The fur is coarse and unkempt, but can't hide how deathly thin this creature was. It died from starvation, not from whatever destroyed its face. That's enough. You stand up and turn back to leave. As you do so, your rustling clothes and echoing footsteps break the curtain of silence. That's when you hear it. Breathing as faint as a moth swings, flapping. You look back to the corpse. The blue flame flickers at you. Its chest expands and contracts. You take a step forward, and the spark follows you like an eye. You are an idiot. We could call out, we could remain silent, or we could leave. I'm gonna remain silent and just watch it. You stand your ground. The thing's flame remains locked on you, flickering when a string of fresh air blows into the cold room. The exit is just 5 seconds away if you turn back and sprint. If push comes to shove, the gun is still outside. The thing remains on the floor, barely moving. The blinking of its only eye is drawn out and deliberate. Its head droops down as if it can barely hold itself awake. Its lips, or whatever remains of them, part. Its breathing becomes easier to hear. I beg your... No, that's not a good way. Hold on. I can do this. I'm a professional. I beg your forgiveness. I'm in such a sorry state. What an understatement. Is that really your this is what you're taking from this situation, my friend? Oh God. What are you? Please sit back down. I am the hotel's keeper and prisoner of the labyrinth. His voice is raspy, nearly a string of grunts booming through the room in contrast with his disheveled body. His remaining eye frowns. And you're the master now, which makes me your servant, bound to your will. I cannot disobey your orders. The thing cradles its head between his arms. His voice comes out muffled. If you wish to know what thing I am I am a hybrid monster. About my sorry state, the previous master did this to me. And as your servant, I shall answer the master's questions. He remains with his face hidden for a while longer. When he does look up, he stares at the exit and not at you. He squints his eye and raises a deathly thin forearm over it. He scuttles an inch to the side so your shadow covers him. Okay, great. I got a lot of questions to ask. Too many questions, but I think we're gonna start asking these questions in the next episode. This is not... I need to, like, read game descriptions more, I think, apparently, because I really didn't think this would be so spooky going into it. Like, I could have played this for Halloween, not Valentine's Day. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to check this game out, it's on itch.io. There's a link in the description down below. I am playing the safe for work version, obviously, but if any of you are interested, there is another version that I will not be touching for both guideline and personal reasons. Doesn't matter too much. We'll pick this up in the next episode. We'll try and figure out what's going on here, and maybe eventually we'll get to the cutesy little romance thing that I thought this was gonna be. Okay? Okay. Goodbye!